Hi, it's Louise at Spiral Bright Insight. I'm a galactic and an intuitive astrologer, and I've got something slightly different for you today. You'll notice if you are sort of a regular to my channel that I am not on my own. I am joined by a fellow galactic enthusiast, Julia, and we want to talk today about the subject of light language. So, light language is something that has been sort of on my radar for a number of years, but I always felt, we'll talk about some of the blocks potentially, but I always felt that it wasn't something for me. And, whenever I tried to speak it, I always felt really stupid. There's no other way of saying it. But it has been coming back more and more over the last few months. And if I just look at some of this astrology, there are some really strong alignments sort of showing up through the chart sort of currently and also into sort of as we move through 2025 that I feel are going to potentially bring this more, not into the mainstream necessarily, but more into, what's happening, more activations potentially. So first of all, I did a recent video about Salacia and Salacia's proximity to Venus, and also the fact that Mercury will be approaching Salacia and is going to feature in the eclipse of March. So for me, Salacia is very much linked to light codes, to sort of the energy of light, and with this connection to Venus initially and then Mercury, I'm getting a really strong sort of intuitive sense that this is going to potentially activate some gifts through Venus, some talents that perhaps many of us have used in other lifetimes. And that is coming to the fore in this lifetime. And then when Mercury joins at the time of the eclipse, I feel, again, that is going to potentially bring through, the ability to use the voice in new ways. There's also Uranus moving into Gemini in July. For me, is sort of screaming activations of the voice. Obviously, Gemini being linked to communication, to connection, and I'm feeling that that may sort of really enhance different sort of types and levels and frequencies of light language coming through. And Sedna is already in Gemini, and again, that it does feel that a lot is coming up from the depths, being thawed out, again linked to messages, gifts, talents that we might have had in other lifetimes. So that's kind of, for me, is why I feel this is an important subject to talk about. You may be really familiar with light language, or it may be something that's completely new. But I wanted to invite Julia on. Julia is one of my sort of fellow galactic astrologers. We connected through Julia Balaz's course, and last year Julia put a post on the Facebook group that we have asking for volunteers to basically help her explore some I guess healing work that she was sort of developing, and I got a really strong yes. I mean, to reach out and say, yeah, I'd like to be a part of that. So Julie and I connected last year, and I had no idea what to expect, sort of what I'd signed up for. But it turns out that she is the most amazing channel, and she sort of combining what you might describe as Reiki, possibly. I'll let her talk about what she does in a second, with light language, but very much using channeling galactic frequencies. And what was amazing working with Julia was that she was able to identify a lot of these frequencies and the way that they were coming through her voice. So I wanted to invite Julia on today because I think she's amazing, and I think we can learn a lot from her. And hopefully we'll just have a kind of a natural, relaxed chat about what she does, and I can maybe talk a bit about my own experience as well. So if I can hand over to you, Julia.
Hi, Louise. Thank you for having me here. Very excited. So just to kind of give a little bit of background, I was always aware of energy. Then I got into Reiki, started working with energy and understanding it a little more. And then in July, I went to a practitioner to get spinal energetics, and she spoke light language to me. And then out of nowhere, I started crying immediately. I'm like, what is happening? I don't know what's happening. I had no idea what light language was. I had never heard it in my life. I'm like, this is so weird. And then that whole session was very insightful. Like I felt like I was home and I didn't understand why. So at the end, I asked, what is this? And she's like, that was light language. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went down a rabbit hole for the next few weeks, just like reading everything I could find online, listening to any podcast that talk about it, like just doing my research to understand what it was. And a lot of videos came up. I'm like, oh, interesting. And then August 7th, right before 8/8, portal, that morning I was on my way to work, and in my meditations, like I felt that light language was coming through in my head. And on that morning of 8/7, I just I just kind of like sat in my car. I'm like, okay. And I just heard a voice, just start talking. I'm like, ah.
Mm-hmm.
And then just these weird sounds started coming through. And I'm like, what is this? And I just started crying. And then finally, like, it was just single kind of noises. And then it became a phrase. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what's happening. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what energy this is. It just felt like home. And that's the only way I can explain it. It just felt like home. I'm like, okay. And then from there it started evolving, and I started talking all the time. Every day, anytime I had an alone time, anytime that I was either driving or walking to one place to another by myself, it was just coming through. But I started noticing different dialects come through. It wasn't just the one, but that one, that first one that came through is the one that I always came back to in every clearing. Then, like, a lot started moving within me, and there was a lot of crying, lots of
Mm.
crying. There were some past lives that were shown to me. It was beautiful. It was hard and beautiful at the same time, and I started recognizing certain dialects that kept coming back that were more recurrent and that I felt very connected to. I just knew one of them was Orion, and I was very connected to that one. And then I started getting a lot of information about Orion. Then Lyra, it was very clear because they showed me a feline, so I knew it was Lyran. And then through all this process, I found Julia
Mm.
and her course, and I'm like, oh, this will be perfect because it will help me with some insight. So I went in, I started looking, just a free chart to kind of look at what were my placements, and that's how I kind of started identifying some of them because they were recurrent and they were in my placement. So I'm like, oh, this is what that is. um and it was just a beautiful experience, and I started using it for myself for healing. I used to work a lot with earth and animals, and um, it just kind of came through on my own healings. And I needed to share that with other people. And that's why I put that message out to
Mm.
understand how my sessions looked and how that looked for others. So they showed me to work with 12 energetic points, and from there, I knew it was going to be light language driven. And what came through when I started doing it for others is that the most beautiful messages started coming through from their guides. And so I recognize some that come through if I'm familiar with them, if they have come through a lot of times, or if they show me an image, I can kind of pinpoint it. But what I've discovered lately is that there's so many new languages and
Mhm.
dialects that I cannot identify. I cannot relate to anything. And they're just as beautiful. I just don't know where they're from, and I just decided like, okay, I don't need to know where they're coming from. If I know, I'll let them know, but if not, I'll just let it be, and it's what they need. But I don't like there's a lot of new coming through lately.
Mhm. Mhm. So would you say, have you got sort of one, I don't know, I guess it would be one type that is that if you feel more attached to or more connected to, that sort of is your own, or are you just bringing through lots of different ones, would you say?
It's a lot of different ones, but the one that, like, let's say the first one that came through, um, that is a fairy dialect, a fairy bird dialect, and um, that one just, that's what feels the most home. Uh,
Hmm.
when it comes to all of them. But there's days that that one doesn't come through because it's not what's needed. But um, that one I feel grounds me and kind of
Yeah.
like back. And my understanding is that there's like a light language and a soul language. And soul language is like the one we pick, let's say in this life, to bring forward. So I'm guessing that's my soul language. And then light language is all these different frequencies. And how I understand it to be is light language is almost like the way we express frequency. So it can come like as a language, it can come in codes, it can come through art, it can be through dance. It's how we express the frequency that we're receiving. Um, so that's kind of the understanding that I have. Um,
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my question, because I think sort of from where I am now and my sort of awareness and my consciousness now, I think what I was doing in the past was, it was always there, but I was going into that real sort of need to understand and to try and make sense of what I was either saying or what I was listening. What does it mean? What does it mean? And because I'm a linguist, I speak lots of languages from and I know when I'm speaking French, I know what I'm saying. And I think with light language, it was just completely different, because it just sounded like I was literally garbling, like maybe babies might, or it just felt really ridiculous. And I think, yeah, I was completely in the sort of the side of the brain that just needs to understand. And if I can't understand what it is I'm saying, then it just did not resonate. Or it resonated, but it obviously wasn't the right time. But I think what was amazing when we had a session, and you were speaking the language, which was beautiful, and in each center there was such a distinct sort of difference in terms of the tone and the sounds and the speed and everything. It was it really felt like there was absolutely different star beings communicating, but then you were able to sort of translate and give a message following that. And I just wondered, is that something that is just sort of coming in to your awareness? How do you think that works?
um, I think when they want me to translate anything, they will let me know.
Mm-hmm.
I notice is that all my clairs in general are very active at the time when I'm channeling them. So there's times they'll give me images, but they give me the image either with a word or a feeling or just a knowing on what needs to be said. Like I just surrender to what needs to be transmitted. I'm not trying to understand what's coming through. I just talk what needs to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but there's times that they'll just talk light language and I have no idea what's happening. They kind of control what needs to come through and what information needs to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And just I allow it to happen. But I think it's a combination of everything. There's times it just comes in words, sometimes it's just a lot of images. So it just depends. It depends on the frequency, but what I have noticed, and that is more recurrent, is they will always talk light language before I give any message. So
Okay.
it's like the way that we kind of calibrate between the frequencies. So they just need to kind of let me get acquainted with the frequency and then they'll deliver a message.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's really beautiful. I guess, yeah, I mean, when I'm sort of, doing my readings, I will just either I tend to write, because I do most of my work, in written reports still. So I will just write something and I'll think, well, I'm not really sure that where that came from. But again, it's kind of being able to disconnect from that, the side of the brain that needs to work everything out, and just trust that what is coming through is exactly what is needed at the time. So, and I think stepping out of my own way would be quite beneficial because I have, since we connected, and I know you were doing well, I'm pretty sure you were doing a lot of activation, or the stuff, the beings were doing some activation work on me. I have been kind of, I guess, experimenting a little bit and just sort of trying to, yeah, just put part my sort of resistance and my, you know, feeling stupid to one side and just allowing it to flow more. And I think for me, it's about confidence, and yeah, just sort of trusting that, you know, I am actually, yeah, that I am channeling something, even though it does feel quite new territory. And I just wondered, you know, have you got any advice for anybody, I guess for me or anybody else who maybe wants to experiment, practice, just to explore, you know, what, yeah, what would be your advice for anyone sort of new or, yeah.
I would say, so the first part is like light language is something that is remembered, is not learned. So understanding you already have it within you and it's
Mm,
part of your soul and part of who you are. And that's knowledge that you bring from all your different lives. So understanding that piece, because again, it's not something conscious that you're going to learn. It just comes out. It's part of you. Um, it's in our contract if it gets awakened or not. But I
mm,
think that if that's a desire, it eventually will come because it is probably in your contract that it's going to come through. The other piece and something that came to me for the first weeks and the first months was a lot of trust and surrender. You just
yeah.
need to, and what they kept telling me at first is like, just speak, just let it out. I'm like, but it's just noises. And they're like, just just let it be what it needs to be. So if you can have like a little alone time out in the woods or everybody's out of the house, just take advantage of those moments to just let it be. Just talk. It doesn't matter if you don't understand. And what I did a lot at the beginning, especially when I noticed that there were different ones, I recorded myself and then
Okay.
just because in the moment you're just letting it out. So if you record yourself and then when you have time you listen to it, you can maybe at that point, because you're not in the channel, you can try to feel how does it feel and what do you feel or what knowing comes to you when you're listening to it. Um, so I think that that's something that's important, but truly it's just surrender. And I know that's so easy to say it, but that's the hardest part, just to let go of our control because we truly don't have control over anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, it's so true. And I think, you know, going back to the astrology, this whole transit of the nodal axis with the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, that to me is the epitome of what you're sort of describing. It's kind of this need to let go of, you know, having to understand and having this order and the structure and, you know, this is the way things are, to just sort of surrendering and just, you know, it's almost like we don't know, this is uncharted territory and we don't really know what it looks like and we can't sort of put a label on it or, you know, yeah, kind of, yeah, yeah, just explain, you know, what's going on. So I think that is part of this whole, you know, 18-month period that we're going through, which which is again part of why I feel that a lot more activations are likely to take place. And it is just sort of going, okay, I don't understand what's going on, but I'm just gonna let it flow. And of course, with, you know, Pisces is all about flow and that more a higher connection to, you know, the higher self and to the spirit, to the unseen realms. You know, it feels very beautiful, very ethereal, very dreamy, very mystical. And you've kind of got this, you know, Virgo South Node. We're going to have to just let go of kind of, you know, this logic, I guess, and this reasoning, which for me, because I've got strong Virgo in my chart, I think that's possibly why I struggle, because I like to know exactly what's going on and, you know, and be in control. And this is just taking me into a totally different realm. But equally, I feel it's kind of part of where we need to go. And when I actually I'll share a personal story, because I had a reading recently from someone else on our course, and I actually asked her about my sort of connection to light language and why, you know, why had I created this block, because I was really aware that I have created a block. And what came through was that I had a past life connection where I'd been sort of in think she said Victorian or Edwardian Britain. And as a young girl, I had had the gift, and I'd almost sort of been speaking in tongues. And I think that is possibly, when you read old stories, people say, oh, speaking in tongues, and oh, it's scary, and it's demon, possession and demonic, and lots of fear. And at that time, my mother in that life had been very fearful and had sort of almost shut me down. And I had this really sort of strong collar around my throat chakra, which, I'm sure that's been contributing to a lot of things. So once I was sort of aware of that, I was, and in that lifetime, I had sort of agreed to sort of appease and please my mother, so I'd shut down my gifts. And I think that creates a lot of frustration because you're not expressing your true self. So that was something that I worked on a few weeks ago, to remove the collar. And when I did, the light language started coming. And like when the session with you, it wasn't just one kind of tone or volume, or it was like there was lots of different frequencies coming through. So yeah, that felt really exciting. I was wondering, do you think do you think that in lifetimes in Atlantis that this would have been something that we would have been more sort of familiar with? Or
Probably, most
yeah.
likely. It's like part of us, and it's a way that we can communicate with different frequencies, because as we have learned kind of a little bit from the different galactic families, is that a lot of them don't even use language as we know
Mm,
it, but
mm,
it's a telepathic like connection. And it's so I think that yes, because they were more developed beings, they were not so
yeah.
as 3D as we are. So I feel that that would have been a way of communication and understanding and
Mm,
distance too. It's just like I think that all has been um like we've been put in a bubble that none of this is acceptable for so many years. And it comes like all those witch wounds and all that stuff that we have, and
yeah.
it from that repression. But I think that as we open up in this new kind of the Aquarius age, and with all the changes that are happening, like I think all of this is going to start flowing more, and there'll be less stigma around certain things, and more acceptance around like the unknown in a way.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. That witch wounds, that sort of, any sort of attempt to express, these gifts and abilities, in times gone by has been met in a very negative way. So, and it is about sort of, using your voice and speaking your truth and shining your light. We've been shut down so many times. So the reason I ask about Atlantis is because, again, just going back to the chart, Atlantis, the asteroid, is currently at 10 degrees of Scorpio, which for me, is sort of very linked to gifts, that may have been hidden beneath the surface and that are coming up. And it's forming a quincunx with Celestia at 9 degrees of Aries. Currently, as we're recording today, Venus is at 10 degrees, so that's an exact quincunx. And with the quincunx, it's like these two energies are trying to speak to each other, but there's not a lot in common, and it's almost like you're trying to sort of negotiate and navigate and adjust, and it's about making those adjustments. And it feels, because when I was talking earlier about Venus, for me is all about the gifts and talents. In Aries, this is about pioneering and always sort of stepping forward. But with the quincunx to Atlantis, it's like, although we're pioneering and moving forward, we're actually really falling back on what we've always known. And this, you said at the beginning, this is something that is innate within us. It's part of us. It's something that we are remembering and reconnecting to rather than learning from scratch. So and that, that really resonated with me. So I just thought, that there seems to be, in terms of the astrology, Atlantis is there, and Atlantis has been speaking to me so frequently in the last few months. Again, people that watch my channel will know I always try and bring in that energy, when I'm doing my various videos.
You brought up the throat blockage, and I think that's something that I've seen almost in every session. It's
Okay.
always it's always a theme. And like I don't really remember what I channel, but I know that it always comes up, and it's always in a way that we just need to use our voices because we don't realize how powerful our voices are and the frequency of our voices. It's
Yeah,
good to write, it's good to express, but when we actually use our voice, like the frequency that it puts out into the world is different, and it's more powerful than what we could ever imagine. Like it just
yeah.
friends. And right now
I,
to
I'm
start
getting
talking.
real, I'm going to say I'm getting real goosebumps as you're saying that. And I'm also hearing really strongly, because I've always, in my work, I've been, doing almost exclusively written reports, but I'm getting more and more of a push that I need to start doing, Zoom sessions and face to face, and that it's actually, yeah, what comes through when you speak that is, really a big part of the value. So again, that's something that, I need to get out of my own way and start and just trust that I'll know what to say, if I'm put on the spot. But yeah, you're right. It's almost like, yeah, that sort of sense of disempowerment, and to shut down the voice is one way to, keep in a state of disempowerment. But I do feel that with Uranus moving into Gemini, that is, Uranus is just all about breaking free, getting rid of all those chains and all that. Wherever we feel blocked or caged in, I just feel that that is really going to make a huge, huge difference. And obviously, Uranus will be in Gemini for a number of years, and we've only got, a short period later on this year, then he'll go back into Taurus. So again, this is something that we're going to be able to work with and get used to, I guess, over it. Won't be, but in other ways, it could be instant because Uranus is always very quick. It's like something comes, it's like lightning bolt, boom. Yeah. So how would do you want to just describe for people watching, how you would, what you do in a session? Because I know you've got a website now, and you're kind of offering this. So
Mhm. I usually I call it a line remembrance, because to me all this process is a way of coming back home within yourself and remembering who you truly are. So again, they showed me the 12 energetic points, and I work with those 12 energetic points, and it's just realigning everything and opening you up, like opening up and realigning the connection within source and Gaia. And Gaia is part of source, a fractal of source, but it's kind of bringing both together and just working in an aligned way within your energetic field. And as we do the alignments on each of the energetic points, that's when some messages sometimes come through. And it's not in every single energetic point, but when there's something that needs to be communicated for your path, your own good, something that it's in your mind, like it will come through. Um, and again, I don't have any control of it, and I I just go into my channel in that moment. So I am present but not present at the same time. Um, so the messages will come through, and we'll do some adjustments and pulling out low vibrational energies. A lot of the times, what gets pulled up is fear,
mhm.
or it might be like smoke or curtains, kind of making the energetic points foggy, or kind of removing all that. But yeah, fear comes a lot, sadness a little bit, anger a little bit, but fear is usually what comes up the most. And then just kind of realignment, and it's kind of reconnecting with Mother Earth. It's something that I notice a lot too when we get to the lower chakras. It just is reestablishing that connection and that remembrance that as humans she's our mother in a way, and that
Mm,
always supporting us. And that's, I think, the other theme. They usually just want us to know that we're not alone, that we're being supported and we're being guided and we're loved at all times, even when we feel in our like darkest space. And what they say just resonates with the person, and it's what they need to hear to know that is the case, that they are
mm, yeah, that's really beautiful. Because I again, just another little story, but I went on a yoga sort of workshop back in May last year, and it was all, we were practicing outside almost the entire time. So, you know, on the grass in these amazing part of Britain. And at one point, I think I'd drawn an oracle card, and the message was fall into my arms. And when we went into the next meditation, I was lying on the grass, and I literally just sort of kept hearing that message repeating. And it was actually, it was Gaia, it was Mother Earth just saying, just let go. And I mean, it was overwhelmingly beautiful and comforting and nurturing at the same time. But just to let go and to feel that, you know, she's got you, you know. And I'd never had that sort of connection with her before, but it was, yeah, it was absolutely incredible. So yeah, it's really nice to hear you talking about that. And I think, again, you know, with everything that's going on, the energies are absolutely so intense and so, you know, crazy at the moment. And I know so many of us are really struggling, even people who are higher frequency souls and, you know, higher awareness and higher consciousness. You know, it's challenging to navigate what's going on, but incredibly beautiful at the same time. But I think that one of the most important messages that I keep getting time and time and time again is that to be in the body and to be rooted and to be grounded, because that is how we ascend. We have to literally descend, come fully into the body in order to go up. And you know, that was a recurring message for me all of last year. It's still really relevant. So I think, you know, if there's anything we can do, if there is a disconnect, or, you know, there is something, a reason that we're not quite able to be in, and again, it's often fear, resistance, you know, a block that we've almost created for ourselves. You know, yeah, to be able to sort of move back in and get that alignment. And then yeah, I think being fully embodied and fully grounded will actually help us to open up to more of ourselves, and you know, creating that bridge, which is why we are ultimately, while we're here. And that feels like that's basically the process that we're moving through. So yeah, amazing. Okay, so what I'm going to do,
sorry, I think really how like that connection was made was, and it became so evident through light language, because I was always looking at something external. I was looking at the stars like, oh my gosh, I don't belong here, right? That feeling
yeah.
of I just don't belong here. I feel out of place. And then when all these happen, that's how I understood that truly home is within myself, and I can tap into it anytime that I want if I just kind of sit with that. So understanding that makes us appreciate our human body even more, and the experience that we're having right now even more, because it's that connection of, if I just look inwards, I have everything I want. I have the support, I have the love, and that's home. And that's my home for the moment, right? Till we go to a different one, but it's all within ourselves, regardless of where we are. So that is something that truly came through, and that really strengthened my connection to Mother Earth as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Because I think, you know, for me, for so long, I would sort of look elsewhere and think, you know, I feel homesick, but I don't know where for, you know, but I just don't feel like it's here. Um, but yeah, it's understanding that actually we are exactly where we're meant to be, and that, yeah, everything is here, and that, yeah, there will be more at other times, but for now, it's the most important thing is right here, right now. And it's having that appreciation and seeing sort of um how sacred that vessel is, you know, the physical body, and, you know, and how critical it is, because we can't actually do the work that we need to do if we're not in our body. It's like yeah, so it's kind of like, it's kind of a no-brainer, but it's taken me a long time to realize that. So yeah. um Okay, so what I'm going to do is share your details in the description box below. But I just wondered, before we sort of wrap up, whether you would be happy to see, you know, if you want to bring, if there's any messages that, you know, are ready to come through at this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and then at the beginning, I kind of set the intention that whatever comes through is for the highest and greatest good of the collective that will be hearing these. Um,
Okay.
I will connect to that, and that. what they're making me feel is that they're coming through as a collective as well. Aniatu shriat anahayariatu shriana ayarakachiti aratushunora anakai ariat anakiosuku riakayana shitikuru yara shakadiana hatatara yonoko shkototoya niata shi arushunu niata sakayariatu suku uni shitiara shunu ataya iataka niatu soko usunu yeriat soko yediana shi Esekeriana kahiroko shunoko yereketa. Adnaka yera hat adiunu ushudu rudia. Eana usuku adia. Ene adashudu. Riata. Oh no. Riatu shunua ayeri usuku niata. Eana ushudu tiana. Eatu. At this moment, humanity needs to focus on staying focused on love and staying focused on unity. There are divisive forces, but polarity doesn't get anybody anywhere. It is time for all of us to come together. But to do so, we need to be our authentic selves. We are all important. We all have a purpose. It's different. Each purpose is different. Our mission here is different, but every single one is important. Some just come to anchor energy. Some come to help others. And some come here with a bang. But they're all important energies. We just have to stop focusing on the differences and how maybe one makes one better than another. Nobody's better than nobody. We all have a purpose. We are all special in our own way. And we all have a part to play. So stay centered, stay focused. Your uniqueness in the collective is what matters. But work towards unity. Focus on love. Anchor yourself in love. Love will be your compass on how you move. When you feel emotions that are too difficult to handle, just refocus on love. Allow love to be your guide. Allow love to lead you into where you need to move. Acknowledge the emotions, but then shift into love. We are moving forward in a way. There's no forward or backwards, but we're moving to where we need to be. We will get there. There's so many shifts happening, so many awakenings, but there's also people falling in fear. Have compassion and have love. And with that said, remember you are whole. Remember you are loved. Remember you're supported. Remember you're enough. Remember you are divine. You are sacred. And that's what matters. Be kind. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I really hope the sound picked up. We've had a few technical issues, so yeah, hopefully it will work. I held the microphone right up to the phone while you were speaking. So, okay, yeah, thank you. That was really, really beautiful. You said it. You felt it was a collective of energies coming through. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Well, a lot of different ones.
yeah,
They came yesterday and they've been around since yesterday, but how I saw it yesterday, I just felt them today, but yesterday I just started seeing all sorts of colors of light just coming in and bringing the different frequencies through the color. So it was just many, many, many different lights and like a mass of lights. So that's who came through today.
yeah. Wow. No, it's really beautiful. I think I loved how you said earlier how we have a soul language and then light language because you know, as I've been sort of exploring what is coming through me, there is definitely a I don't know, a voice or a sound or you know, sounds whatever that I do keep sort of coming back to. So I think yeah, that was really sort of helpful to reflect on. So okay. So have you got anything else you'd like to share or add or
Not,
before we no?
I think that's all I have.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, I would, you know, recommend anybody reach out to Julia, I guess if they've got questions or if they're, you know, interested in finding out more about you know, the work you do. And because I know you are sort of, yeah, you've got a website now, haven't you? And yeah, and you're taking bookings. So yeah, really, really incredible. So yeah, thank you so much. And
Thank
yeah, we will be back soon. Thanks for watching.